Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Craig Milkowski taking a look at one of the stakes events on Saturday's Belmont at the Big A card. Race 10 is the Grade 2 49er Stakes, a new stakes race. I think this one used to be known as the Kelso, but dubbed the 49er this year, going a one-turn mile on the Aqueduct main track. Let's throw up the field of 8 runners for this race, Craig, and it's a pretty nice Grade 2 field. We've got a lot of potential in this race, horses that seem to be moving into top form right now, including the 3-year-old Ever So Mischievous, as well as the 4-year-old Accretive, who's coming off a good effort behind Cody's Wish.
There's some good horses. There's a little bit of filler in here, but I think it's a worthy race for 49er, a horse who was one of my favorites. I saw him run in person a few times, so I was glad to see the name change and glad to see that it drew a good competitive field.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race because I think it's an important discussion point in handicapping this 49er. There is quite a bit of speed in this field, Craig, in the sense that there are 4 horses who want to be forwardly placed, and it's going to be interesting to see how they sort themselves out. The one that is not necessarily shown on the lead on the pace projector, but I think is the most need the lead type of this quartet, is the number 6 Swift Shore. He feels like a horse that only really has a chance if he gets to the front end in this race, and it's going to be interesting to see what those 3 horses, the number 2 Ever So Mischievous, the 3 Accretive, and the 4 Film Star, do inside of him.
I agree. I'm not so sure that I agree in this particular case with the fast pace. I know why we gave it, because a lot of these horses have 1s and 2s early in the running line. But when you give a closer inspection, you can see that a lot of them, at least a few of them that we're going to talk about, have been able to either rate a little bit off the pace or what I call rate on the lead, where they're just setting a slow pace because nobody else wanted it. So I'm not convinced that the contenders in this race are real need to lead types.
Yeah, it's one of those that you could see going either way. If they all have intentions to be forward, then it could heat up, but it doesn't necessarily have to, because a few of these horses have shown the versatility to sit off another rival in the early stages. Let's go through this field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1, Double Crown. And if we're viewing this as an extension of the Kelso Stakes, well, he won that race last year at Aqueduct in a 42-1 upset. He's done quite a bit of running since then. This will actually be his 15th start of the year 2023. He's been pretty busy for these connections, Craig. And he's a horse that's gone in and out of form at different times. It feels like he's kind of in one of his good cycles right now, though you can make the argument that he should have gotten up last time in that Maryland Million as the 6-5 favorite.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a stretch for him to win this race, but you certainly could have said that last year. He came in with similar speed figures. I think this is a little bit stronger version than the race we saw last year, so it's going to be tough from that inside draw.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is actually a much stronger Grade 2 event than the Kelso that Double Crown won last year, but he would appreciate any pace that develops. The number 2 is Ever So Mischievous, and he's the horse in this race that feels like he really does have the upside. I mean, he's just a couple of heads away from being undefeated in 5 career starts, and Brad Cox added blinkers 2 back, and it felt like that gave this horse some needed focus. We saw that in that gritty victory at Saratoga, and then last time he just beat a field of 3-year-olds that he was simply better than fairly easily. This is a step up in class for him, Craig, but now's the time to find out if he's this good.
Yeah, you got to find out eventually. You run out of conditions. So we've been seeing more of those non-winners of 3, non-winners of 4 type races of late, but he's shown the talent to do it. He's been improving his speed figure, running a career best last time out. And he's one of those horses I was talking about. When you look at his PPs, he's up near the lead, even on it, but a lot of blue fractions. The one time he had red fractions was in a 7 furlong race where he came from off of it. You do wonder about the inside draw, though. That could force his hand a little, but I think this horse is very good.
The number 3 is Accretive. Let's take a look at his most recent runner-up finish in the Grade 2 Vosburg. And you can make the argument that he's the horse to beat off this effort, Craig, because he gave Cody's Wish a little bit of a scare in mid-stretch here, as Cody's Wish seemed like he had to do a little bit of work to separate himself from Accretive in the final 1/8 of a mile of this day. The difference is Cody's Wish broke a little slowly, had to overcome a moderate pace scenario, whereas Accretive was the one setting that pace. So he definitely had the better of it between those 2 runners, but he's a horse that is moving in the right direction. He's now making his 4th start of the season. It seems like he's been progressing. We know that he handles the mile, and he also has that versatility that we talked about.
Yeah, he's a good horse. When you look at his PPs, it's kind of striking to see the horses he's actually lost to in his races, and horses like Jack Christopher and Gunite and Cody's Wish. So when he doesn't get to the winner's circle, it's not for lack of a poor effort outside of one race where he didn't show up in the Jerkins last year. But he's obviously a horse with some talent, but he does face some others. And I was wondering if you'd make him the morning line favorite. I probably would have done the same. And so I'm not sure there's going to be any value if you think he's going to win here.
The number 4 is Film Star. Let's take a look at his most recent race in the Grade 2 Woodward, where he ran quite well. This was an honest pace that he was attending every step of the way. He put away the other speeds and just gets run down by a classy horse like Zandon in the late stages. Can't really fault him for that, but he's game to hold on for second this day. This horse has just been in fantastic form since the claim by Linda Rice, has not finished out of the exacta at all in his 8 races for her. We'll be turning back to a mile here. He's also cross-entered, we should say, at Keeneland on Saturday in the Fayette Stakes, but our colleague Dave Grenning did report that Linda Rice is going to run him here in the 49er. So the turn back is the question, Craig, but he has sat off other horses, raced well in a stalking position before, and you can't knock the form that he's in.
You can. I do have a little more concern that he may be more of a need to lead type. Almost all of his wins have come in wire to wire fashion, but I also don't think it's out of the question that he will be the horse that ultimately gets the lead. He's only got to outrun Swift Shore most likely. So he's obviously a strong contender. I think he fits this race much better than he did the Fayette at Keeneland. So I would say good choice by the connections.
And I do like that he's drawn outside of those 2 other horses that have the same decision to make that he does, whether to go forward or get that stalking trip. At least he will have, Jose Lezcano, I should say, will have options about what to do in that situation. The number 5 is Dr. Ardito. Let's take a look at his race 2 back when he was last victorious at Saratoga. And this was a race where he was a bigger price because a horse, American Revolution, took all the money. That horse didn't show up with his best effort. So I think it made this New York Bred Stakes race slightly easier for Dr. Ardito to get the job done. This horse was the picture of consistency leading up to his last race in the Park Dirt Mile, and he just did not show up at all that day. You could see on the backstretch he was going backwards, was not handling the sloppy track. So if you use the track condition as an excuse, you could make the argument he'll bounce back here, Craig, but even if he does, is he good enough?
Yeah, that is the question. His speed figures are a little bit light, but the 117 he ran in that New York, the Evan Shipman at Saratoga was a good solid race. And the upside for him is that if you look at our pace projector and things do get heated, he is the one horse that I would trust to be making up real ground at the end. So I'm willing to put a line through that last race and consider him a contender.
The number 6 is Swift Shore, who was that speed horse that we were talking about in the pace projector. And he's a horse that they've done very well with since claiming for $50,000. Took him a little while to come around, but he's now won 2 in a row, including a high-level optional claiming race last time. Though it feels like maybe we've seen the best this horse has to offer, Craig, because he's gotten a couple of favorable trips and pace scenarios in those last couple of races. This is a big step up in class for him, and he's now facing a tougher pace situation.
I would agree. The pace situation worries me, and also he, like you said, he's had easy trips. We see blue fractions in a couple of his recent races where he just had things his own way. Even the ones that are not blue fractions, they're not particularly fast. And I would want to see speed figures that are competitive with this group before I trusted him taking this big a step up the class ladder.
Drawn outside are a couple of David Jacobson runners. The number 7 is Business Model, and he's a horse that's going to be looking to get back to that effort 3 back when he closed from far behind to win going away at 7 furlongs at Saratoga. Like a lot of Jacobson runners, Craig, this horse is a little bit in and out. Sometimes he pops up with a good effort, but more often than not, we see a lackluster performance. I think stretching out to a mile will be just fine for him because he's been successful going that distance in the past. He just would really need things to fall apart.
He would. And like you said, he kind of pops in and out. I remember when he won that Saratoga race thinking, where did that race come from? And now looking back after 2 more starts since, you still wonder, where did that race come from? And even that race wouldn't be good enough to win a race like this one.
And then on the outside is the other Jacobson horse, Synthesis. Kind of a similar thing where he's run some good races this year, though they've been a little farther back in the PPs for him. Recently, he's just been out of form, obviously overmatched in those grade one races at Saratoga, but even against Allowance Company the last couple of times, we have not seen his best. A mile, a bit of a question mark for him. So he's even tougher to make a case for.
Yeah, he's 30-1 on your morning line, and I probably wouldn't take him at 300-1. I mean, he's run dead last 3 times in a row against much weaker foes the last 2 times. So definitely not for me.
Well, Craig, I don't know about you, but I had a tough time making picks in this race. It's kind of hard to separate the 4 horses that are going to take most of the money in here. You're going to go with the upside of the number 2, Ever So Mischievous.
I am. I'm hoping that he'll get a good trip. I think he can rate, but I don't think he necessarily has to. I wouldn't mind an aggressive ride either. I just think he's got a lot of talent, is improving, moving in the right direction, and think he can take another step forward.
Yeah, I wanted to pick Dr. Ardito. I just wasn't sure if he was good enough. And I was really impressed by the performance of Film Star last time in the Woodward, the way that he was able to outrun his odds, survive a tougher pace scenario for the first time. And I don't mind him turning back to the mile here. And just Linda Rice striking while the iron is hot. That's been working for quite a while in New York. So I'm going to go with the number 4, Film Star. Craig has the number 2, Ever So Mischievous, in the grade 2 49er on Saturday at Belmont at the Big A. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.